is I look at the way that, for example, Red Bull does its marketing.
Mm.
And you'll notice that Red Bull are not too concerned about blog posts for SEO. They're not too
Right.
concerned about these little things. They
Mm.
do something quite strange. They build brand, and they have this conceptualization, which is quite genius, that if they can get the brand strong, then there's this almost like magical effect, as if they're charging a sigil, and then downstream sales come. Like the brand gives the context for the marketing, which gives the positioning in the market, which gives the
Yeah.
sales a sort of like juggernaut power to it. And so when you look at the way like Red Bull market, it's like, what did they do? Well, they get a load of young, handsome, extreme sports stars, get them blasted on Red Bull and caffeine, and then get them to like jump off a cliff while holding a Red Bull can. You're kind of like, that's what, like, how's that to do with me drinking anything? But it's like high energy, excitement, and Red Bull, and then all those events, Red Bull is always there, and so they become broadly associated with a big picture feeling of energy, and that creates the brand. And these are all like really intangible, high level forms of thinking, but it actually drives a powerful brand. Coke or McDonald's is another brilliant example of this, like the I'm Loving It or the McDonald's arches. These are very famous, but even though they're famous,
Wendy's burgers, all of it. Yeah.
People overlook this stuff, like the feel that McDonald's gives you. This day still makes me salivate when I see McDonald's, because they psyoped me when I was a kid. Like, it's amazing. And that level of thinking is so sophisticated that people overlook. And I guess what we're seeing with all of this stuff is that as we move forward with these tools, it's almost like everybody is going to be forced to this type of picture. And I see actually an awful lot in the online marketing space. Like, people are now moving towards this idea of a personal brand. Like, what's your niche? It's like, well, I do AI. I also do copywriting. I also do marketing. I also talk about Carl Jung. I talk about it. Actually kind of, it starts to broaden around me. And I'm this brand. Joe Rogan's MMA psychedelics philosophy guy. Like, that's like 40 years ago. How is that even? It's just so out of context. But now it actually makes sense because it's got this brand power to it. And actually, another thing that to drill down that's really, really important is that you were saying, for example, the arrival of these, we could call them maybe deep fakes, but the fact that people are not going to be able to tell the difference between reality as easily anymore. And this really started to hit home for me when I went up on YouTube and an ad popped up that was a Huberman on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Andrew Huberman talking about like a supplement to take. And then I saw another ad on TikTok that was Huberman talking about a supplement to take. Now, I later found out on Twitter that the one on TikTok was fake, completely made up by AI. And it hit me like a truck. I was like, I didn't realize that. And you know what's happened since? Every time an ad shows up on YouTube using that Huberman thing, I don't trust it. I look at it and I'm like, I can't believe this. And the only way I can discern it is by saying to myself, is that on brand for Huberman to say? Does that sound like something that Huberman would say? And then it all just kind of clicked in my head with what you were saying. It's like, my God, my ability to bond with that dude, form a relationship, understand the context he presents, allows me to almost know if the type of information I get is really like aligned with him and whatnot. I'm just like, wow, man, we're going into a crazy time.
But here's also where we're going. We need to go one step beyond a brand, because a brand is just a manifestation of choices you make and what you say and style and everything else. But that's surface level. Most companies do that and they stay there because up until now, that's all you needed. But and this is why you have Burger King versus McDonald's. Like, they both have a brand, but they're selling essentially the same thing. And here's people arguing that they're not selling the same thing is why those brands are successful, because people go, no, Burger King doesn't do all the junk, and they'll have a reason as to why they pick one over the other. But that won't be enough. It won't be enough to have a brand anymore, because a brand is all about the perception of the marketplace, like what people think about you and say about you when they think about your product and so on. That won't work anymore pretty soon. And you need to have more so than just a reflection of what you want to say, style, talking points, visuals, aesthetics, and so on. Any company that has a brand or is trying to build a brand, you need to go a couple of steps, or at least one step beyond it. And you need to think about, what future are we communicating to people? So McDonald's has no future in their brand. It's all about if you want a burger, you buy McDonald's, and they have a reason. They have the jingles they got. It's to help you remember, I'm loving it and all this other stuff. But it's all contained and reactive to the consumer, and doesn't go beyond it. Now, McDonald's has tried to bring in future perspective into it, where they try to all of a sudden add salads to their menu and to make it all green and make it all healthy. And, they try to make people go, oh, McDonald's, I can eat healthy at McDonald's. It's not really working. Like, some people will tell themselves that they can go to McDonald's because they'll have a salad with their Big Mac. And so they'll feel like they're making a healthy choice, but it's not really on brand with what McDonald's is. So they're stuck and they're confined to the message they can give the marketplace. And the moment the marketplace shifts too much in what they want, what they perceive, and what the choices they want to make, they lose out. And so the brand it goes back and forth depending on where the market is at. But we're getting to the point where companies will need to have a future vision so that they can lead a market and not just reflect and react to the market. So what McDonald's, as an example, not that I'm an expert on McDonald's, I don't eat at McDonald's, but as an example, they're going to have to decide, do we want to take a position in the fast food market as a whole and dictate what happens in that marketplace and set the tone, set the talking points, set the perimeter of the market? Or do we just want to continue to go back and forth and be a reflection of what people want, which is people change their minds all the time, right? So you got to go beyond just, we have pretty pictures and good visuals and nice jingles and good like slogans. And you're going to, as a company, you're going to have to make a choice. How do we want to define the market? Whatever market, even if it's a small market and you're like a solopreneur, even like the clients you have, do you want to be seen as the pacemaker in a race, the animal that runs alongside to set the pace? Or do you want to keep chasing the competitor in front of you or next to you? That's where we're getting, because soon anyone can have a brand, a personal brand, a company brand, and they can have the same distribution power on the internet as everyone else. So there's no value anymore with having just a brand, because when everyone can have a brand, who cares about your brand? And when everyone can have the same distribution power as a big Fortune 100 brand versus like the small guy or girl, when the same potential with AI is here, and I can use and create visuals as good as McDonald's can create visuals. So when the playing field is leveled, there's no value in a brand anymore in a traditional sense. And you got to go a step beyond, and you need to take up leadership position in the market, and you need to become the brand or the company that sets the tone and sets the talking points and leads the pack instead of just competing against the pack. Does that make sense?
100%. So I wanted to ask you a question about that. It's sort of in the middle. If McDonald's starts to talk about health and start to offer salads and all that, what's the future vision there? Is McDonald's basically saying, I envision our clientele will start to evolve into the healthiest version of themselves. And so it's, instead of just like, here, I'm just, shoveling slop down your throat, which I know a little bit rude to say, but because I actually kind of like some certain stuff that comes out of McDonald's, but they're making people guzzle. And that's like, it's sort of like, here's the food you want, and then this is what you get. But you're sort of saying, if they start to establish like health parameters and they start to offer like healthy foods and maybe protein shakes or whatever, they're sort of saying, you're going for a future and we're supporting you in achieving that future. And so the brand is sort of like, this is the goal here, like food redefined as healthy fast food, health fast food, or something like this. And so that's what makes them stand out, is that they've got this sort of impetus and this reason for people to follow along. Is that the kind of correct way to conceptualize that?
Sort of. It's more about innovation and moving in a way that your competitor is having a hard time keeping up and chasing you. So if McDonald's starts to, and there's a lot of complications to their brand with the food they do, but just try to simplify it. Instead of being reactive, because they started doing the health thing when they realized that their sales were dropping because people overall wanted healthy choices with their fast food instead of the slop, right? So they had a reactive approach to it. But instead of being reactive in what you do, you need to decide on where you're going in the next year to 3 years and what parts of the market you want to take over. And then you start talking about it and start acting on it fast and keep the pace up
Oh, wow.
and confuse Burger King. So one week you start talking about, let's say they have a new salad, but you can now be so segmented that you can have your overall focus message without becoming too confusing in people's eyes, because they can take their messaging around a salad and target a specific market segment. Everyone else don't really hear about it or see it. They only go after one market segment. Burger King goes, oh shoot, like we need to do something with our salads too. And they go, maybe they chase the same market segment, but the moment they start chasing the same market segment, you then adjust your language to another market segment. And so you're being strategically pinpointing segments in your marketplace with specific messaging for each segment. And you move fast enough where Burger King is always chasing you to the next market segment, to the next product, to the next fast food option. And so they end up always chasing you and never innovating on their own. The only right choice for Burger King is that if McDonald's is saying, hey, have this healthy salad to a particular segment in the marketplace, Burger King needs to go, we're not going to do salads, we're going to do milkshakes, and we're going to go after this segment. Don't even compete and chase. You need to pick and start to strategically go after the market in segments, so that like you don't, because the moment you start chasing, that's the moment you lose.
Man, do you have any idea how, like, here's a really elegant way that I can put this, because this is exactly how high level fighting works. Like when you go and you learn to box, it starts off on, so like to bring back the original point for the audience, like of course Sam's talking about the need for the higher cognitive skills and the realization that the people who understand what that means and learns how to capitalize on them are going to be so much better than their competitors in this new environment. They're just going to wipe the floor. Now, what do we mean by this? Then when you go in and you learn to box, obviously the first time you do it, you're standing there and you get punched in the face a lot. And so you learn to put your hands up. And then when it comes to fighting, you learn patterns. So you go in and you're like, oh, I'm going to throw my left hook, my right hook, whatever. But if you start to get really good at this, you'll come across a type of fighter who is like Floyd Mayweather. Now, when you're in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, there's this weird feeling that you have. I've never been in the ring with him, but I know this because I've fought people like this, where you will throw your best punch ever, and he'll be standing there and he'll have his face out in front of you, and you'll be like, I've got him now, the fool. And then you throw the hardest punch you can just to try to get him, and he'll just vanish, and then he'll just turn he'll like teleport behind you and just punch you in the back of the head, and you're like, how did he achieve this? Now what's happening is that he's gotten into the position of prediction. He's gone out of the lower quality skills of just throwing these heavy punches, and he's now elevated into this higher level. So he's like the matador. He's standing there and he's looking at you and saying, I've downloaded that this guy drops his right hand when he throws his big hard left. When he gets angry, I punch him in the nose a couple of times lightly, and then he gets angry and he throws his big left hand and he drops his right hand. So what I got to do is I got to punch him, I got to make him want to throw his big left hand, and then I'm going to step out of the way and then clock, I'm going to smack him in the face. And he predicts this. He, in the moment, he downloads that and he sees 10 steps like chess ahead of you, and then he puts you in a reactionary position. He teases you and he sees what the plan is. He understands you, and he understands you better than you understand yourself, and he outcompetes you by out predicting you. He might not even be stronger than you. He might not even be bigger than you. He might not even be more talented than you at certain things or athletic, but because he's smarter, because he can outthink you, he defeats you. This is why you get Floyd Mayweather beating, like, you know, prime Conor McGregor, even though he's 40 years old, is because the brain is what does the work. And so you're sort of describing that in the marketing world, with the abundance of information, the rise of these artificial intelligence tools that can be super generative, that kind of level the playing field perhaps in certain areas, the higher cognitive faculties are going to make people competitive. And so the people, the companies that can sit down and think about the future and assertively go for this are going to start to, those that can reach and predict and aim, and wow, like it's so crazy to think, those that are starting to think 5 years in the future and then acting now as if 5 years in the future is here now are going to be the ones that win, which is also creating this acceleration effect within the entire context of the industry, which is, that's so crazy.
So
when you think
marketing becomes a competitive strategy. Like it's always companies, and down from the biggest companies down to like you and I, the small people in the world with small companies or whatever, we always think of marketing as a way to attract customers and get customers. And it's kind of like you exist, you put out your message, your visuals, this, that, the other thing, and you convert people. And then it stays in its own lane, in its own domain. But we're at the point now where marketing can become a competitive strategy, where you can use it as a way to demoralize your competitors and capture more of the market share. Because if you set the pace and if you start acting in a way that to them looks like weird, and they don't like, why is McDonald's doing this? And then they start chasing you. Meanwhile, you don't care about them because you're strategically going after certain moves and certain pockets of a market to execute on your plan. And who cares what Burger King is doing? Who cares what Wendy's is doing? Because you're acting with pinpoint precision, and you can do that now. Like you can have customized and tailored messaging to very hyper specific groups or larger segments without the other segments ever being confused by what you're saying. Like if I'm the guy who goes to McDonald's because it is slop and all I want is a Big Mac and wolf it down and like, the cheese fry, like whatever the fries are, I don't even know what they sell. But if I want that, why do I care about a salad? So if I see them selling a salad, I'd be like, that's stupid, McDonald's. Like, why are you doing that? Well, what if I never really find out about the salad and all I ever see are endless variations of Big Macs? I'm super happy. And I'll never entertain the idea of a salad because why would I care? Right. And so you can be niche and specific. And like the underlying point in all of this is that this is enabled by AI and machine learning. A lot of these very strategic moves would be hard or next to impossible to execute just a few years ago. It'd be too much. It would be too hard. It would require too many people, too many whatever. But now that AI can do like 90% of the work for you, then your marketing team becomes like, we can do the work of 100 with a team of 10 and have an outsized impact, asymmetrical impact in the marketplace because of AI.